Yo, happy Wednesday, November 1st, 2023, and welcome to a brand new month and a brand new edition of what I like to call For the Birds. I am your host, the vegan you believe in, Kurt Cadet, aka Conscious Kurt, in the flesh as always. And here on For the Birds, I like to talk about different forms of toxic and negative behavior, the effects that behavior has on us and our mental health, and what we can do to have a better understanding of that behavior, have more control over it in order to have a better quality of our lives going forward. I want to talk to you guys today about something that really holds us back in relationships and in many cases sabotages us out of great relationships. And that thing I want to talk to you guys about today is being too entitled. I feel like now with the social media world we live in, I know I've referenced this a lot, but bear with me, that audacity and entitlement is at an all-time high. As somebody who's been alive and been in this world for 37 years, I don't ever think I've seen that entitlement issue as bad as I've seen it now. And probably the biggest example of that entitlement is some of these videos we've been seeing go viral over the last few weeks. The first one I'm going to mention is the one of the girl who didn't want to get out of her car to go on the date to Cheesecake Factory because she felt she was too good and she looked too good to be eating there. And also last week, that list that went viral of all the places that girls don't expect a guy to take them to on a first date. And that list was literally a mile long. Holy shit. And I know a lot of people will say that video with the girl who didn't get out of her car to go to Cheesecake Factory was fake and that it was actors doing it. And that may have well been the case. But regardless of whether it was fake or it was real, there are a lot of people, women in this case, that do exist out there that behave that way. And I've seen it all too often over the last few years where some women really have an ego problem. They act very selfish, they act very entitled, and they act like the whole freaking world revolves around them. And hey, it's okay to have standards. I get that. It's okay to have boundaries and be clear about the things you will not tolerate. But there is a fine line, and I've said this before, between standards and preferences. And not wanting to go out on a date to a place like the Cheesecake Factory, that shit is a preference. And if you get something like that confused with having standards, quote unquote, then your ass is delusional. Crazy, egotistical, and delusional. And hey, it's not just women who are guilty of this entitlement bullshit. A lot of men are also guilty of that entitlement, of expecting certain treatment and expecting certain behavior from the girls they want to date, when in some cases they haven't earned that treatment yet. And regardless of whether you're a man or a woman who acts super entitled and that acts like they're owed everything, regardless, that shit is not okay. When you go into any relationship, the worst kind of attitude you can have is an attitude of, oh, you owe me this. Oh, you owe me that. You better do this. You better do that. If you don't do this and that, that means you don't love me and you're not worthy. Calm the fuck down. Calm your ass the fuck down. Yeah, because in all honesty, this is getting ridiculous. I've talked about this before about the whole divide between men and women, and I'm not going to get too deeply into that today, but I will agree the one thing they both have in common, regardless if you think one side is more guilty of it than the other side, is that sense of entitlement. And that shit is super toxic. It's super negative. And the more you hold on to that entitlement and are unwilling to let it go, the more opportunities for love and happiness you are going to see slip out of your fingers. And if somebody told you that that sense of entitlement is a good thing and that you should never budge on it and you should, wear that shit like a badge of honor, they fucking lied to your ass. As someone who's been seeing this kind of behavior go on for the last few years and has been turned off by it very much, That shit is not something to be proud of. So, what is it that has caused a lot of men and women to be super entitled and super picky when it comes to the people they date? What is it that's caused this behavior to spiral the fuck out of control? Well, obviously, goes without saying, one of the places it has come from is social media. In the current world we live in, pretty much everybody has a Facebook account, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. And with those platforms, people have a place where they could share their views, share their opinions, and gain a following from sharing a lot of those views and opinions. But sadly, many of the things people are posting online that they're gaining a following for and becoming famous for are things that are super toxic and also super egotistical. And that probably holds the most true when it comes to dating. It's sad to say a lot of people have gotten this attitude of, I deserve the world, you better do this for me, you better do that for me, from people they follow online, from a random YouTube channel, from a random Instagram page, from a random Facebook page, TikTok, whatever it is. It's not surprising to see that they got a lot of that from the social media that they consume. They'll come across any video and come across any post that says you need to demand this from your partner, you need to demand that from your partner. If they're not doing this, that, and so, then they're a piece of shit. They don't deserve you. They're for the streets, whatever it is. And while some of those videos can be educational and you can learn something from, there are others of them and the things that you see on there that are fucking ridiculous. Yeah, the things they tell you to demand from a partner and want from a partner, in many cases, it's, I hate to use this word, or just mad unrealistic. And like I said, it's okay to have standards and it's even okay to have preferences, but that shit needs to be within reason. And some of these things on social media that tell you what to demand from a partner and what you should get from a partner are very unreasonable. And a big reason why a lot of people are probably still single and probably still not with a significant other is because their quote unquote standards are super ridiculous and also super, yes, unreasonable. And yes, you're entitled to have those standards and preferences or whatever it is, no matter how unreasonable they are. But by sticking to them so tightly, being unwilling to let them go and being unwilling to compromise on them even a little bit is not the flex that you think it is. And for instance, that girl who didn't want to get out of the car to go on the date to Cheesecake Factory, and any girls like that who are like her, chances are they got that bullshit attitude and mentality from somewhere. Some random person they follow on Instagram, some random YouTube channel they watch on the regular, they probably learn that kind of behavior from those places. I promise you. And there is a lot of good that came from social media. I will admit that. I probably wouldn't have a podcast now had it not been for social media, but there is also a dark side to it. And one of the bad things that has come from it is how entitled and how egotistical it's made a lot of people when it comes to the others that they choose to date. Yeah, because if you consume that toxic bullshit for too long, after a while, you're going to start believing it. And in some cases, it's going to become a part of who you are. And that's not a good thing. And sadly, in some cases, many people with a social media page and who have that much influence on other people use that influence to teach them the wrong things. Because I've seen this post before where it said social media has a lot of people fumbling genuine people because they're under the illusion that they have options that they don't really have in reality. But because of social media and because of the assholes they choose to listen to on social media, they end up ruining a potential good thing. Yeah, that social media thing has definitely gassed a lot of people up and made them think that they're a bigger deal than they really are. And in this case, they think they're owed a lot more than they deserve. Some sad shit, it really is. And another thing that has caused many people to be super entitled and have an entitled attitude when it comes to the dating world is bad experiences and bitterness. Hey, all of us have had a bad break at one point or another when it comes to the people we date. Whether they hurt us, did wrong by us, or turned out to not be the person we thought they were. All of us have had experiences in dating that have taken a toll on us. But the worst thing you can do when you have those bad experiences and you're done wrong by those people is to allow yourself to turn into somebody who isn't any better. Because not only do many people who go through these experiences become bitter in the process and become assholes in the process, they also bring that bitterness into whatever next relationship they end up getting in. And when you bring that kind of baggage with you, it usually does not end well. So when people go through these bad experiences in their relationships, they'll have the attitude in many cases that the next person they end up dating or end up being with has to do this, has to do that, can't be about this, can't be doing that. And I get it to a degree, but you have to understand when you get into any relationship, especially in the beginning, that there are certain things you are not entitled to. No matter how much you want it, no matter how much you think you deserve it because of how your past relationship turned out, there are certain things that you are not owed. And I feel bad for whatever happened to you in your past relationship and for it to turn out as bad as it did. But that does not give you the right to jump into the next relationship and automatically think that you're owed a bunch of shit that you didn't even earn. Yeah, even if your past boyfriend didn't spoil you the way you wanted to be spoiled or take you on crazy vacations as often as you would have liked to go on them, the next person you date and the next person you end up with does not owe you that kind of treatment. If they want to do it for you, that's cool. But don't go into the relationship on day one acting like you're already owed all of those things. Using one example, some girls who maybe dated a guy before who like didn't spoil them, didn't spend a lot of money on them, and like didn't take them on crazy vacations all the time, they may jump into the next relationship acting like they're automatically owed those things and acting like they're entitled to those things. And on the flip side, for many men probably had past relationships where their spouse didn't maybe cook for them or clean for them as often as they wanted to, or didn't take care of them a certain way, or didn't submit to them a certain way. And they may go into the next relationship and the next girl they date automatically thinking that they're owed those things because the last relationship they went through, they didn't get those things. Well, I have news for both sides. You are not owed any of that. That kind of treatment is something that is earned. You're not automatically owed it. No matter how good you look, no matter how much you have your shit together, it doesn't matter. There is certain treatment that is earned and not automatically owed to you. Regardless of what happened in your past relationships, your past breakups, whatever it was, just because you went through that before, that does not give you the right to bring that baggage and take those feelings of bitterness out on the next person you end up with because they don't owe you a damn thing. And lastly, a big reason why many people have entitlement issues when it comes to the relationships they jump into is because of ego. Ah, the inflated egos. I talk about this topic on the show a lot, don't I? Well, in this case, it definitely applies. Like I've said before, you definitely need to be confident. You definitely need to have a high opinion of yourself. And you don't even just need these things for a relationship. You need these things for yourself, for your own self esteem. But there's a fine line between that confidence and something that's just straight up arrogance. Because when somebody is arrogant, they have their nose in the air. They think they're better than everybody. They think their shit doesn't stink. And they think they're automatically owed the entire world. And sadly, when many people have this ego problem and they jump into a relationship, and sadly, when people have this kind of ego problem, when they jump into a relationship, they automatically act like the person they're with owes them the world, should kiss their feet, should worship them, should do everything they say, and should be willing to serve them at all cost. But when somebody has that kind of attitude, it's clear when they get into a relationship that they're only in it for their own needs to be served. They're not in it to serve someone else and be a good partner for someone else. All they care about is getting what they want and having their needs met, having their demands met, being catered to hand and foot, and having their ego stroked 24 hours a day. And that girl that was in that Cheesecake Factory video that went viral, and anyone that is like her, that is a prime example of someone with an ego problem. Yeah, because when you have an attitude that because of the way you look, that you're owed certain treatment, you're owed certain gifts, certain vacations, and you go as far as to act like you're too good to go into a fucking restaurant, then in all honesty, I can't think of anything more unattractive. No matter how hot someone is, no matter how attractive someone is, no matter how good they look at an outfit, if they exude that kind of attitude and that kind of behavior, they automatically become unattractive to me. Yeah, because that ego bullshit, that entitled bullshit, that I'm too good to go inside the Cheesecake Factory bullshit, that shit is for the birds. And anyone who exudes that kind of attitude and exudes that kind of mentality, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, the only place you're probably going to end up is old and alone. So now that I've broken down the different reasons why people go into relationships with a sense of entitlement, what are the different things that one can do to shed themselves and strip themselves out of that egotistical mentality? Well, one crucial thing that they can do that'll definitely do wonders for them is having an open mind. I think that's a big problem in dating and relationships nowadays is that people are just so set in their ways, so stubborn and so stuck in their ways that they are just unwilling to ever compromise. They have their standards, they have their things they want, they have their things they don't want, and they won't budge on that shit for anybody or anything. But sadly, in many cases, when somebody is that close minded, they end up cheating themselves out of a lot of good partners, a lot of good relationships, and also a lot of good experiences they could have along the way. So that's why I say going into dating with more of an open mind and not thinking that you're automatically owed certain treatment or you automatically deserve a certain treatment will more than likely better your chances at finding the right person for you. Yeah, because if you actually give somebody a chance and actually get to know them, you'll be freaking surprised at how good it could end up turning out. You guys could have good chemistry. You guys could end up hitting it off. You guys could have a lot of fun together, have a lot of good sex, whatever you prefer. But chances are you won't get there and you won't have that kind of fun unless you adopt more of an open mind. Because when you open up your mind to possibilities, you open up your mind to experiences, and in this case, you open your mind to people, then you'll end up getting a lot more out of life, and you'll also end up living life a lot more than you would be being so damn close minded. And like I said, it's okay to have standards, it's okay to have things that you want and you don't want, but understand, especially in the beginning, there is certain treatment and there are certain things that you are not entitled to. And once you understand and realize that you are not owed those things, and you're able to approach any relationship and any person you date with more of an open mind and not act like you're owed everything, then you'll have a far better chance at getting the outcome that you really want. Just be open minded. And another way people can shed themselves of that sense of entitlement when it comes to the people that they date is by losing the fucking ego. Anybody who ever goes on an ego trip usually ends up traveling alone. And if that's the case, the worst thing you can do when you get into a relationship or you start dating someone is have that kind of ego problem. Because when you have that ego problem and think you're automatically owed everything that you haven't even earned, then you honestly should not even be in a relationship. Because I've said before and I'll say this again, a relationship should be a team effort. It should be two people coming together who want to serve each other. And the only way to really achieve that is by checking your ego at the door. Because that, oh, you better take me on expensive vacations and expensive dinners all the time shit, or oh, you better cook and clean for me all the time and be my servant 24/7 shit, all that shit is rooted in ego. That kind of treatment is not something that you are automatically owed. That kind of treatment is something that you earn over time. And the only way many of you will come to that realization is if you lose the motherfucking egos. The whole world doesn't revolve around you. Nobody you date automatically owes you a certain kind of treatment. So please, for the sake of you and for the sake of anybody who has to ever be around you, get the fuck over yourself. And by choosing to get the fuck over yourself and understanding the world does not revolve around you, you will be shedding yourself of that inflated ego. And I'm telling you, it'll be a good feeling once you do. You'll be a better person, you'll be a nicer person, and you'll be a person who has a better chance at finding the love of their life. So if you want to find that love of your life and you want to find that happily ever after, you need to let that ego go, let that unnecessary baggage go, and start adopting more of a we attitude as opposed to a me attitude. And lastly, a way many people can shed themselves of that entitlement when it comes to the people they date is by thinking for themselves. As I talked about a few minutes ago, a lot of the entitlement issues we see going on today and a lot of the ego issues we see going on today has been very influenced by social media. And not just social media, it's also a lot of people's inner circle of friends or coworkers or whoever it is who encourage that kind of behavior and encourage that kind of entitlement. And look, I'm not saying it isn't okay to listen to some pointers and listen to a little bit of advice, but at the end of the day, you have to make your own decisions. And you can't base most of those decisions off of what you see on social media or what your friends tell you or what your inner circle tells you. There comes a point where you have to think for yourself. You can't base those decisions off of what social media is telling you to do or what your inner circle of friends are telling you to do or society, whatever it is. There are certain choices you have to make based off of what works for you. Just because your friends are telling you you need to have these crazy ass demands for somebody you date, or because a social media personality is telling you you need to have all these crazy demands for somebody you date, does not mean you have to listen to them. It does not mean that they're right. It does not mean you have to take every single last thing they say as the gospel and project it into your everyday life. Yeah, because when most people do that and most people adopt that mentality because they're pressured into it, they usually end up losing themselves. And they usually end up just becoming like everybody else. And I'm here to tell you that's probably the worst thing you can be. And many people are so influenced by social media and believe everything on it that they'll see a list, for instance, like the one that came out last week of all the places for a guy not to take a girl to on a first date. And they'll believe it and they'll think it's true and they'll think it's right. And the reason why is because they don't have a mind of their own. And that's the problem. A lot of people have these unrealistic expectations and all these entitlement issues when it comes to the people they date because of outside forces influencing them. And if you're dating, you're getting into a relationship, the worst thing you can do is let that be affected by what other people are saying and other people are telling you to do. In order for those relationships to be healthy and in order for those relationships to succeed, you need to have a mind of your own. You need to think for yourself and you need to know what advice to listen to and what advice to reject. And most of this advice I'm seeing today that's encouraging people to act super entitled, act super egotistical, and act like they're owed a bunch of shit that they haven't even earned yet. That is some advice you need to reject. And those are people you do not need to be listening to. The only person you really need to listen to and the only person's true advice you really need to go by if you really want to succeed in the dating world is your own. If you trust yourself enough and you think highly of yourself enough, then what you choose to do and what you decide to do on your own, chances are will be the right way to go. You can't let your life, especially your dating life, be ruled by social media personalities, by your inner circle of friends who probably don't even have relationships themselves, or anybody else. Because only you can do the thinking for you, and only you can do the living for you. Because at the end of the day, no matter what anybody else tells you, no matter what advice they give you, whether good or bad, the person who's going to have to live through those experiences and go through those experiences is you. So that's why I say you don't have to go by the rules of everybody else. If everybody else is saying you need to demand certain treatment or demand certain things from the person you're dating, that doesn't mean that you have to listen to them. Some of their points may be valid, but other points of theirs could be bullshit. And chances are they probably don't have a spouse themselves because they have those crazy ass expectations. And if you don't want to be like them and you don't want to be miserable and lonely like them, then don't listen to their asses. If you're good with going on a date to a coffee shop or to the park or to a random restaurant, then that's your prerogative. That's your business. You don't have to listen to another person saying, oh, if they don't do this and that for you, then that means that they don't care about you and they're not invested and they're a loser and you should drop their ass in a second. Nah, if you like that certain person enough, have enough of a connection with them, and have that kind of fun with them, then go with it. It doesn't have to make sense to other people. It doesn't have to make sense to your friends. It doesn't have to make sense to the fucking social media personality you listen to every day. The only person it needs to make sense to is you and that person you are with. So that's why I say it's super important to think for yourself and decide for yourself because only you can live your life and only you can know what works for you and also what doesn't work for you. So, my final thoughts on this whole topic are this: there's nothing wrong with maybe wanting a certain kind of treatment and maybe hoping whatever relationship you get into, you get that kind of treatment. But there is something wrong when you act like you're automatically owed that treatment by somebody you barely even know yet. Because when you're first dating somebody and getting to know them, it's wrong when you automatically act like they owe you something or you automatically act like you're entitled to certain things from them. Whether it's because of the way you look, or it's because of what you went through in the past, or whether it's because you have an inflated ego, acting like you're automatically owed a certain kind of treatment when you haven't even done anything to earn that treatment yet is a surefire way to scare somebody off. I'll use myself as an example. If I were to be going on a date with a girl and right off the bat, the very first date, she acted like I automatically owed her some kind of expensive dinner or some kind of expensive shopping spree or concert tickets or whatever it is. If she had that kind of entitled attitude right from the beginning, I would not want to go out with her on a second date. No fucking way. And on the flip side, if I were to go out on a date with a girl for the first time and I automatically felt like I was entitled to sex on the first date or any kind of treatment like that on the first date, then she would also be within her rights to never want to date me again or talk to me again. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to the people we date, they don't owe us shit, and we also don't owe them shit. Because I've said before, my standards when it comes to dating is somebody who's kind, who's unselfish, who has a good attitude, and who's pleasant to be around. As long as I have those things and I'm also attracted to the person, then I'm good. And anything else that comes beyond that is simply a bonus and simply extra. But many of you unfortunately fail to understand the difference between those standards that I have and anything else that comes after that. Because anything else that does come after that is simply extra, simply a bonus. And if I do get any of that stuff, it is appreciated. But I don't act like I'm entitled to it. If I do have a girl who ends up wanting to cook for me, clean for me, or dress in lingerie for me when I get home from work, I'll know when I get that treatment that I earned it. That I didn't act like I was entitled to it, that I didn't act like I was owed it automatically. I'll know whenever I do get that treatment from a girl I date that it was earned. And on the flip side, if I do end up taking a girl on a nice expensive dinner or a nice shopping spree or a concert or a nice vacation, she'll also know in turn that she earned it. Because I personally don't mind doing those things if I can. But the thing I do mind is when somebody acts like they already owed those things from me. Because, like I said, when it comes to that, nobody owes you anything. And in turn, you also don't owe anyone else anything. So check the egos, stop listening to outside forces so much, and be more open minded. Because while this dating shit is hard and this dating shit can be a challenge, choosing to do those things will make it a lot less challenging and a lot less stressful than it has to be. Well, that's all the time I have for you guys today here on For the Birds. Hope you guys enjoyed this discussion, this conversation. And like I said before, I am not a licensed doctor or therapist, but I do have a lot of experience in my personal life going through these issues. So I use this podcast as a platform to help others in getting through them a lot easier than I did. And if you ever want to talk to me or connect with me in any way, you can follow me on my various social media pages, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Send me a message, send me a friend request. I'll be more than happy to chop it up with you. And also, if you want to listen to this episode or any other episodes of this podcast, you can find it on Spotify, Spreaker, or YouTube. Subscribe to it. Leave a comment on any of the episodes. Let me know what you like about them. Let me know what you don't like about them. And also let me know what other issues you may think are also for the birds that I could talk about in future episodes. But regardless, I will be here for a long time to come, calling out much toxic and negative behavior, the effects it has on us and our mental health, and what we can do to have a better understanding of it, more control over it, in order to have a better quality of our lives in the future. So until next time, this is Kurt Cadet, aka Conscious Kurt, for another edition of For the Birds. Take care, have a good one, and remember, don't be an asshole in real life or social media, because that shit is for the birds. Have a good one.